Hello, everyone, and welcome to, oh yeah, an APB webinar with Colin McDowell and David GNOZZI'S. Oh yeah, I give it up. I hear you're cheering. That's good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Colin.
Hi, David. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, always a pleasure. So, for everyone who's watching, don't worry. I'm only going to give you some, very short pitch about what the APB is. But then David's going to show you all the real cool stuff with that fabulous studio of his, whereas I'm surrounded by books and synthesizers that don't work. No, actually, they all work. It's just the books. Oh, anyway, okay. Shall we get started? Here we go. What we're talking about. We're talking about the APB, the analog processing box. What is it? Well, McDSP decided to take all our almost 3 decades worth of modeling technology, and we thought, gee, maybe we could put this into an analog circuit that we could program. That's right. We made the world's first programmable analog processor. Hot dang, here we go. That's what it looks like. Wait, there's no knobs in this guy, you might say. It's also green. Sorry, green's my favorite color. How does it work then? Oh, that's right. I got lots of awards. Fine, whatever. Moving on. Check out the back. There's only 2 connections. You got your Thunderbolt, you got your word clock. What's Thunderbolt do? Well, you operate the APB from APB plugins, which I'll show you in a second. And actually, David will show you a lot more. The plugin takes whatever controls you're twisting and turning, makes a control signal, marries it to the audio signal, and sends it over Thunderbolt into the APB in one of those 2 ports there. From in there, we got our own little brain in there. It will take the analog, we'll take the digital audio, we'll convert it to digital. Geez, flip that. We'll take the digital audio, convert it to analog, get the control signal, set up the analog channel, process that sound the way we wanted it as per the plugin, bring it back in, convert it back to digital, and back into your DAW. There are no less than 3 saturation circuits per channel, so we can make sure you will saturate in the analog domain instead of clipping digitally when you go back into your DAW. You might say, well, what's word clock for? Well, the APB needs to sync to your audio interface. You got to have an audio interface that has word clock. Why are there 2 APB ports? Because you can daisy chain up to 5 of these guys on a single Thunderbolt bus for up to 80 channels of APB processing. What's not to like? Okay, fine. What's inside? There you go.
Oh, I've never seen it inside.
Oh my gosh. Well, here you go. So, on the lower right-hand side, you have your Thunderbolt card, which receives a Thunderbolt signal. And then you have your main board, which receives a word clock signal, mixes and matches and matrices them all together and how we want to do it. And then you see your 1 through 8 and 9 through 16 analog channels. You got your 32-bit AKM converters. You got your WEMA caps, Bourbon op amps, that VCA, couple other things, blah, 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 blah. You can almost see how the signal goes up through the sides and then back down through the middle through no less than 3 analog saturation circuits per channel. And then we go back to some more converters, back to digital, back to the main board, back to Thunderbolt card, and back out to your audio interface. Hot dang. That's right. That's why it's so big. Moving on. So I talked about the hardware. This is my bullet points to make sure I don't screw up because that's what engineers do. Yes, it's a premium analog system. It's fancy. All right. It's self-regulating. You turn it on, it monitors its temperature to make sure it gives you the same sound on every channel or on all 80 channels if you have a lot of them. The conversion is 32-bit. We support Thunderbolt 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's got patented technology from McDSP and it's made right here in California, USA. Hot dang. Software. That's right. It supports all the major formats. It's the plugin. You get full session recall and preset handling, sample accurate automation, automatic delay compensation. There's even a low latency mode with Pro Tools so you can track with it. Wow. So let me get this straight. I have a plugin, but it's an APB plugin and it operates in the analog domain, but it works just like a plugin, like any other plugin. So it's just a piece of cake to use. Boy, don't tell David. He must have a wall of gear behind him we can't even see in the shot. Well, he'll figure it out. Anyway, great. Okay. Almost done. What are those plugins? Like the chicken head compressor, the C673 dynamic range compressor. We have the C18, the L18, L-Mu tube limiter, Mu tube compressor. We have a mixing console, we have a multi-band compressor saturator. We have a kinetic drive saturator solely circuit. You can even tell you what the temperature is in the box. Royal Q equalizer, the Royal Mu compressor limiter. Tape, that's right. We emulated tape with an analog circuit. So it's an analog emulation of analog tape. Wrap your brain around that one. Bob, bass optimized bias, what's not to like. For all you people doing Dolby Atmos, we have a Dolby Atmos compliant version of the Royal Mu compressor limiter. It's very cool, in my totally biased opinion. We just showed this at the NAMM show. This is the DC2 dual compressor, 2 compressors per channel instead of just 1. So you can take one compressor, the other compressor, you can blend them together, put them in series, put them in parallel, do all kinds of stuff. It's great, in my totally biased opinion, but that's it. Now we're going to hand it over to a real professional. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. David, take over.
Here we go. So, first of all, I think I'm going to start this with just telling my experience with the APB, which I think is important because I'm pretty sure a lot of people have questions being this box being a unique piece of gear. For all intent and purposes, an analog box is, I have the 16 channels, because I'm spoiled. So we have 16 channels of analog processing, but it's got converters on board, in its clock, like you said. So I just wanted to say this, because a lot of people maybe take this for granted, but as a professional mix engineer, for me, reliability is arguably the #1 thing. I need to rely on my gear to work the next morning. When I go to bed, I leave a mix, I open it the next morning, everything needs to work as the day before. So this is just to say that since I had the APB, I never had a single issue with it. Never had a glitch, never had anything, it's been working for me perfectly, flawlessly since day one. The first install was just as easy. I actually have a network of interfaces. So I have 2 master word clock. I have 5 different interfaces for mixing and 3 different converters for mastering. So mine is a complex system, right? And the APB was integrated into it in just 1 second. Converters are amazing, and my experience with this was literally flawless. So I just wanted to say this. I think for this, I'm just gonna go, I have all but one, which I'm gonna open right now, because it's arguably one of my favorites, and I just wanted to maybe start from this. This might be one of the latest plugins that was released for APB, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and is the BOB. So low-end processing is really important, and this plugin in particular has been kind of a secret weapon for a lot of things, whether it's bass, whether it's drum loops, whether it's kick drums, and nothing really sounds like it. And when I say nothing really sounds like it, I also mean no other piece of analog that I have here sounds like it. So I just wanted to give like a few examples of this. We can start from this one. And I have a simple drum loop here. This is just to show how easy and simple it is to give this very organic, very deep and focused low end. I can do a few more examples even on different genres. For example, I should have here a distorted bass, which, you know, usually these type of processors are more commonly used for 808s or a drum loop like the one that I just played right now. But I don't think there are many examples for things like industrial or heavy rock or things like that. So I just wanted to do an example on this one. Pass it for now. It's a good sounding bass already. It's big enough, but again, I love how not only I seem to be able to add almost an extra octave to this bass and so much more focused low end, but the squash part, right? So the dynamic control keeps it so steady. And usually before this, I always, and I might still do it today, but this makes it so much easier because usually on electric distorted bass like this, we tend to split it. And we have the distorted part on one channel and the sub energy on the other channel. I find that it's much easier, and many times it gives better results to do something like this just on the track in insert right now with the BOB. Acoustic guitars, which is not something that you would think to use a low-end processor on, but both acoustic guitar and distorted guitars, I find when I receive something that is particularly thin, this is kind of it works almost like a psychoacoustic processor, right? And there are plugins, digital plugins out there that are psychoacoustic processors that do add maybe a lower octave, or they take the fundamental and they add higher harmonics, so it feels like you have more low end, but This is analog, so this is for me the difference. So I'll just give you an example. As you can see, I go higher in frequency. So we started with a drum loop like around 40, 50, and then the distorted bass around 70, 60, 70, and now on acoustic guitar we go higher. I do this example on purpose, so to show you like the different ranges and how versatile is this thing. Okay, and everything, you know, obviously is in context. These are just some examples that I'm doing based on this processor. So I'm not gonna talk about this only. I'm gonna spend too much time otherwise. So I'm just gonna try to go over some other of my favorite processors for this. There are some questions. We want to answer some of the questions on the chat, maybe. Is there any convolution going on? I think I can answer this for Colin. I don't think there's any convolution. This is full, you know, analog circuit, just digitally controlled.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll go to another one of my favorites. I mean, there are, so both the Royal and the Mew, I tend to use them together. Like usually it's kind of, I see them like a chain for me. Actually, I really love them in a mastering context. So I'm just gonna grab a mix that I have here that I prepared for this and just show you. This is a test session, guys, where I have like, you know, I was ready for any kind of question or play any kind of example. So it takes me a second to find the right mix for this that I prepared. This should be this one. And this is actually a fan favorite. Every time we use this mixes, people love it. This is Bella's cover of Love Song. The Royal Mew, like I said, is one of my favorite processors for the APB. It's so soft and warm in a good way. Like it seems to hug the material. And just like many Barry Mew compressors, the action is almost invisible, meaning this is not a compressor that you hear pumping like a VCA compressor style or a FET or an 1176 like this, but it's very natural and organic. I'm just gonna give you a little bit of an example, which is much easier and better than me talking about it. And you can hear and you can see it from the gain reduction. This is a quite dynamic mix. It's a crescendo, right? And I love how you can push into it and it just gets this, I hate the word, but that's just the word, this analog vibe that it gives. The saturation is never harsh or too much, but it's definitely present. You can hear it. You can hear the music pushing into it. I really love this processor. It's great. Usually for mixes, I use it in dual mono like this to keep the stereo image open, especially on a song like this when you have elements that are very different, left and right, different guitars or different percussions. And in combination with this, like I mentioned earlier, with the Royal Q.
Make me feel like I am whole
All right, so I'm. It's funny because I'm always surprised about this EQ. I used it for years at this point, and every time I'm still kind of surprised how beautiful sounding it is. I just find the two together is a killer combination, again, especially in a mastering context. In this case, I'm using it in mid-side. It's one of the few EQs that I'm not a big fan of mid-side EQ, especially not by default, like, a lot of people do. I think mid-side is mostly something that should be used for corrective work if something is wrong, and or in specific cases, like I'm doing right now, for very small, very detailed enhancement. For example, the low end boost right here is only on the mid channel. The top end boost is on both, just a little more on the side. So very, very minimal adjustment for something like this. Even the mu, sometimes I just run it without compression, because maybe on a rock mix or a metal mix or something more aggressive, I don't want the smooth action of the mu, but I like the color and the saturation part of it. Definitely love it. There is some questions we want to answer.
It's up to you, David.
Yeah, well, definitely. I'll take a couple of answers.
Or just tackle them as you go.
David, if you had an instrument to add to APB, what would it be? I think it's a pretty comprehensive list of plugins. Like we have, which probably I'm going to talk about it next, is the mixer, which has great saturation. We have the kinetic saturator, which is one of my favorite. I'm actually using it right now on a mix that I'm doing. We have EQs. We have multiband compressor. We have a lot of different dynamics. It's kind of a hard question. We also have the BOB, which is a special processor for low end. I think the list is comprehensive. Maybe a Pultec style EQ just for the familiarities that I have with the controls and the curves. That would probably be it. But I'm very satisfied with the list of processors that we have right now.
We take requests.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'll get back to you if I can think of something.
I heard Pultec style EQ with maybe some kind of saturation.
Yeah, that would be definitely cool. There's one plugin that I feel it gets overlooked, and it's the limiter, which is called L18, and everybody is after loudness today. And here we have a high-end limiter that sounds very, very organic. This is often, I want to say, in my chain, my mastering chain, especially if I am not necessarily going for the -3, -4 LUFS craziness level, but it's, I need something that is like classy sounding, and we are still loud, but maybe, in the range of the -8, -7, or even a little louder. This is a very versatile, very organic sounding limiter that I feel, maybe it's just my impression, it gets a little bit overlooked. So I just want to give you guys a couple, like an example. This is a mix that is some time ago, and it's not mastered. I'm using non-mastered version. And this is also a bottom heavy mix. So usually limiters and dynamic processor, they tend to have hard time with a lot of low end, because it's just the nature of the beast. The more low end we have, the more distortion it's probably going to happen, because the low end has so much energy and it's very exposed. Usually it makes speakers rattle if it's distorted, all kinds of problems. So I find that this limiter actually allows me that extra push many times, and in a very natural and transparent way. So this is the mix.
Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah, boom, back again. Pump the right medicine. Pick up the veterans. Peacock and Masterson. Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah, boom, back again. Pump the right medicine. Pick up the veterans. You showing up when I'm showing up that meat like Ed Gein. I'm that mean. That beats, I beat the debt with the dead cheap cold feet, like cop killers meeting police. An MC rockin' tree, MMC 365 days. My mind sideways, my third eye rocks a triangle. I work a mad angle. My muscles are optimal. Rockin' fuel. If you spot this dynamic dude, fuck a crew. Me and Pete will.
Okay, just this alone. And granted, I'm cheating a little because I didn't compensate fully. But also the point of having a limiter is for the material to get louder, right? But still, I like it because it never feels to me like I'm chopping off peaks, more like I'm increasing the density of the material, and you have the optional colors.
assassin. Ha! Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah! Pull back again. Pump the right medicine. Pick up the veterans. Peacock and assassin. Ha! Feel the rush of adrenaline. Yeah! Pull back again. Pump the right medicine. Pick up the veterans. You showing up when I'm showing up. Showing up that meat like Ed Gein. I'm that mean. That beats I beat the debt with.
Which is very, very cool. I'm not sure what Colin did with the brightness control on the color, so going clockwise, but that is one of the coolest top lift there are out there. And in the same way, very often modern music, especially computer-based music, it's kind of hard and harsh and the high and top range. And what I find useful is to go counterclockwise on the color, even maybe a little too much and a little more than I would, for then compensate with a top boost with maybe, you know, the Royal EQ or one of the other EQs that we have here, because it seems like it softened the harshness on some mixes and then makes it easier to boost the top end after that. And with limiting, that's very common. What it happens is not just, but specifically, especially with computer-based music, when you go limiting the high mid range, it's the one that gets a little too hard. And that's why there are, you know, many processors out there to try to tame it, spectral processors to just, you know, smooth out things. I feel like the actual action of this limiter doesn't do that. Next, we have someone that wanted to hear tape on vocals, so we're just gonna do that. I think the tape is the latest processor, Colin, that was released, besides the new dual compressor that is coming out.
So yeah, tape and Bob are the last ones, and then dual compressor is the new one coming out probably end of March.
Perfect. This is also a very versatile processor, can be used on 2-bus, can be used on groups. I use it on all these elements in the past with success. So I have a stack of vocals right here, actually. So I'm just gonna do single vocal first.
Oh, what a beautiful Sunday.
And then I'm gonna play the full stack. So the things I like to do with the tape is I always keep an eye on the gate reduction. This is because my levels never change that much. When you mix with analog, usually your levels are very consistent because you hit the machines at the same level. And so any processor, there's a GR, there's a gain reduction metering, my metering are gonna be there. It's the best way to gauge what a processor is doing, even in this case. I was and always have been a fan of the AC1 and AC2. If you guys, yeah, exactly, right? So those plugins were a game changer for me back in the years. And I think I used I think the AC2 is what started me with mixing with some kind of tape on my 2-bus, which right now is like I have the Neve 542s always on my 2-bus. I think, you know, the AC2 was really the plugin that started me on that. If you're familiar with that, we have a similar layout on the roll off and bump. And actually after vocals, I'm gonna try it on maybe drums, because this is kind of a secret weapon to find the lowest useful fundamental for the roll-off and then bump it. And what it does, it cleans up the sub-energy that you don't need, and it makes that corner frequency so massive. Not the best example for vocals, so I'll keep that for later. On the tape, we have an input. That's key. That's how you drive the unit, okay? So unless you hit it at the perfect level, experiment with the input when you're using this processor. That's really how to get the sound out of it. So this is vocals.
Oh, what a beautiful Sunday. Want you to know you're the one that I love. Heard that it sounds like a cliche, but you're my one and only.
All right, so in this case, I'm using the 70s, a little more grittier than the 80s, and we have two different tapes. You will see how much it changes the tone and the character when we switch this from 456 to GP9. And I'm keeping the compression like a 50% in this case, 2.2. I'm gonna keep that variable there and changing both the head and the tape. So you see, if you keep an eye on the gain reduction, how just those two controls, leaving the input and the input level where it's at, change the action of the tape.
Oh, what a beautiful Sunday.
This is without.
Want you to know you're the one that I love. Heard that it sounds like a cliche, but you.
And you can see that when we switched from 556 to GP9, at this level, it's not even compressing, it's not applying gain reduction. So,
oh, what a beautiful Sunday. Want you to know you're the one that I love. Heard that it sounds like a cliche, but you.
they are very, very different in gain staging and how they react. If I go back here, you will see the gain reduction going really over the top.
Oh, what a beautiful Sunday. Want you to know you're the one that I love.
Which sounds extremely cool, especially in a song like this, even if it's a little too much. But you hear how the tape is different from a compressor, like a dynamic processor, right? Which it changes the envelope. We have this more natural pressing movement of the tape. If we go back, if you go and change the head.
Oh, what a beautiful Sunday. Want you to know you're the one that I love. Heard that it sounds like a cliche, but you're my one and only.
You can see that you need even more signal in when we go from 70 to 80s on the GP9 to see gain reduction. That does not mean that it's not adding colors or adding characteristics from the tape. We're looking, like I said, at the gain reduction. I did the premise at the beginning, so because I want to gauge what the processor is doing. If we play the entire stack, this is kind of interesting. I'm gonna go back to factory. And actually you can see my presets here. So because we have different gain reduction at different levels, I kind of make these presets for myself. So it keeps the gain reduction constant. Let me see if they work on this vocal.
Oh, what a beautiful Sunday. Want you to know you're the one that I love. Heard that it sounds like a cliche, but you're my one and only. Oh, what a beautiful Sunday. Want you to know you're the one that I love. Heard that it sounds like a cliche, but you're my one and only.
Okay, so you can hear there's like dirtier and cleaner, but these are presets that I made that keep while changing both the heads and the tape formula. They kind of keep the compression between 1 and 3 and maybe 4 dB of gain reduction here, and so I keep that gain reduction and that dynamic processing while changing the colors. So this is an idea if you want to do the same, and you can see when I change presets, the input and output change so that it keeps the gain reduction about the same. I'm gonna play this on drums because I want to show you guys that trick that I was talking about, and we can play a mix too. I'm gonna go back to default, and for this one I'm gonna go GP9A. Now I'm gonna keep 70 for this. Let me do some gain staging. The trick that I was talking about, trying to find the lowest useful fundamental, right? So in this case, the kick drum. What is the lowest fundamental frequency where the kick actually has useful information and not sub energy or rumble that we don't use? This is gonna be between 60 and 40, like let's see. And what the roll-off does, it cuts below that frequency, and the bump kind of makes this resonating bump at the corner frequency, doing two things at the same time: cleaning up the low end that's the sub energy that you don't need, and at the same time giving us a deeper low end. And I absolutely love this because the type of low end that gives the tape gives is like nothing else. It's like, to me, it's very different from an EQ or a combination of EQ and compression, because you can hear the squeeze in this case, and it's dynamically controlled. It's not too boomy, but it's so powerful, and it makes the kick drum especially so much bigger. I'm exaggerating settings, obviously, to make things like obvious for the webinar, but that's also, you can apply this to full mixes, find something that is suitable for this example really quick, and then I'm gonna answer a couple of questions. I'm gonna read a couple of questions in the chat.
Let's go, heartbreak motel. There she's not there, you are the curse of bed. Let's go, heartbreak motel. There she's not there, you are. Heartbreak motel, burned to the ground. Had to do it now so you can come around. Heartbreak motel, burned to the ground.
And again, there's this combination of like grit and color and such an organic feeling on the low end. Fundamental is around 50 here for this kick drum, and I just love it. And if you mix into something like this, which is how I use my tape emulations, regardless what processor I use, your low end will come together a lot faster, and it's gonna be much easier. That's just my experience with them. Let's read a couple of questions. Love the move for mixer for the distortion. I think everybody does. Like, that's whatever Colin did with that. Let me show you guys, if for whoever is not familiar with, this would be it. It's a single channel that you can definitely open as many as you have. In this case 16 for me. No, actually, yeah, it was 16. It would be 16, 8 for the 8 channel, where you have a simple but super sweet sounding high boost and top boost, which you can activate and deactivate. The saturation, this is the magic knob. The saturation, like sometimes I don't even touch anything else. I just run a few channels, like as many as I can, just for the saturation, because it is one of the best sounding saturations out there. So I definitely feel you on that. This is one of my favorite as well. I would maybe like to see something Brick Lane Enigma mode on the APB compressor, where you can really get under the hood to access compression, ballistic, etc. That's a suggestion for you, Colin. That's completely out of my business and territory. Tend to use any processor that I use on the 2-bus, whether it's a plugin, whether it's APB, or whether it's a piece of hardware. Most times I use it in dual mono. It just, keeps the stereo image much better. And if the mix is done right, the mono image is gonna be fine. Hi, David and Colin. Question for Colin. Are there any plans to develop an SSL style bus compressor?
Boy, why not? Lots of folks ask me questions about what kinds of things can we do, and the list is pretty long. So if someone has a very specific SSL or any other kind of style of compressor, yeah, we can do it. Send your list of feature requests into support at McDSP.com, and they forward that stuff to me. And I'm just generally locked in an office and just been told to code. I'd mix with David, but then it wouldn't sound as good, and he'd probably get tired of me after about 5 minutes. So
now,
we can do it.
I have a question for you about the new dual stage compressor that is not out yet. Do we have different topologies for that? Do we will have different topologies, or like having two of the same in available?
Yeah, no, a lot of people at the NAMM show asked me roughly the same question, David. And that's why it's not shipping yet, is what we've shown is that here is this dual compressor guy. You got 2 compressors. They can either operate in series or in parallel. And you can make them sound a little bit different with what we showed at the NAMM show. But yes, when we come out with the final version, it'll have lots of tweakability that I think will make it exciting and fun for people. And just to be clear, I mean, the APB, has already, like the tape APB plugin you were showing, that's effectively 2 compression stages, 1 limiter stage, and 1 saturation stage, all in it. So just to take that functionality and just break it into be controllable by the user, whether in series or in parallel. Yeah, that's always been there. We're just sort of trying to open up some more of that with the DC2, the new plugin we showed at the NAMM show. And like all APB plugins, it'll be a free plugin we give to all registered customers.
Which
Yes,
would-
we can do that.
Yeah, that is totally amazing. Yeah, and it seems like a trend, and I wonder because I find myself using a lot in a lot of cases serial compressor, like one after the other. There's a couple of units actually that I have here that are like that. So there's one box that have 2 stages of compression. We've seen on NAMM hardware units that go in that direction. I think the next APB, the new compressor is gonna be very well received because of this, because it seems like techniques changed, taste changed, trend changed, and music changed. But I think everybody is kind of leaning into using 2 stages even for one single track more than we did in the past. I'm very excited for the new plugin. I gotta, I can't wait.
You're going to get a beta whether you want one or not.
Exactly. Is the new comp something like a combo 1176 and 92A? I think Colin just answered that. Elmu on vocals is very sweet, definitely. I just wanted to give a couple of examples of one of the stars of the APB lineup. Like I said before, this is a lot of people's favorite, and is the X channel. I'm not even sure where to try it because this can end up on literally everything for me. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start with synths, a place in which I tend to use it a lot, and electric guitars. Again, I wanna give an example with some more edgy material that we don't see often used in test and examples. So this is the raw synth that I'm using. I just like how it just adds so much character to it, and that's literally what I usually do. I push it to the verge of breaking and too much, and then I back off. Just to give another example on different material to show you how versatile the saturation is. And as you can see, the saturation reacts based on whether or not we are using EQ, whether or not we are in pre or not. We can do hardcore type of sounds. Someone mentioned the saturation on industrial vocals, and that is definitely a use, especially if you box it in, if you want to do like a kind of a type of radio very distort effect and push the saturation really hard on vocals and then maybe cut some of the top end, which is usually what gets a little too harsh. But unlike completely digital plugins, again, this type of saturation, it's much more forgiving than we see in just straight up digital. And you saw it on, I just did this example with 2 different synths to show you how the source material really is important and how the saturation reacts differently depending on what were we feeding to it. I have a couple of heavy guitars, so bear with me for people who are not into the genre, but I think it's important. Like I said, we don't hear often example with heavy stuff. Okay, I want to be subtle. I'm not gonna do crazy example where the volume is like 10 dB louder or it's like 10 dB brighter, or no, this is just to show you how much more focused at the same volume. I'm backing off the volume here. The guitars get, and electric guitars are hard because, especially when there's heavy distortion like this, the top end always tend to get harsh and just hard to listen to. It's always a battle between how much I can cut without making the guitar sound dual and how much I can boost the top end so they cut through the mix without ripping my ears off. Well, many times I find that saturation is the answer as opposed to EQs. So the MuX channel is one of those things that, and right now I just have 2 channels that I'm putting on the master, but if you go and fine tune and put 1 on each channel and tweak maybe the EQ a little bit, the amount of saturation a little bit, it's just so much better. How much time do we have, Colin?
As much time as you
Okay.
want, David. Lots of people watching you still.
Awesome. Colin, what was your motivation behind making APB, and how does it differ from the native plugins?
It's a good question. We spent decades modeling lots of circuits and compressors and other boxes, and it just was a lot of fun. And it was literally like a lunchtime conversation. Wouldn't it be funny if we took all this and put it back into a circuit? So like, imagine 2 piles of code. One's like the digital algorithm and one's all the smarts to make the algorithm. Take the digital part, take it away, and put back in an analog part. This part of the code can just still work the same way. And that actually works pretty well. And that's what we did. And I have to say that the APB is a joy to program. It always sounds pretty darn good right out of the gate when we make a new algorithm for it. And it's fun, just programmable. I mean, I think if I was like talented like David, I could have a wall of gear because I'd actually earn enough money to, buy all that stuff. But I like having a box that I can just, repurpose or reprogram for different things. And that just makes a lot of sense to me. So in some ways, I think, the APB is it's just going to keep going. We're going to keep coming up with new ways to use it, and it's just going to be fun. Yeah. So that's what I want. Things that I'd want to use it in the studio. That's the motivation. And we're just like an engineer. You always want to try something, see if it works. Then maybe if you're lucky, you get clients like David who showed off for you.
I kind of, it's funny because I work with so many companies, and I follow development of products many times, very often. And I notice how some, if not all, what I consider the best products out there, best sounding, best engineering, they come from the same place. They come from, I'm doing this for myself, I want to use it. And, and it's very common. And it's funny how I see this thread between different companies. But I also wanted to say something about what you just said. Gear is cool. I like knobs, I like lights, I like buttons and all that. Problem is I can't bring it with me if I go anywhere. So, and that is actually kind of, most times it's not a problem because at this point in my career, I don't need to move around. And this is my studio, I mix 95% of the time here, but especially because of channel and the education part of my job. This year in 2026, I will be around doing seminars. And I can put my APB in a backpack and have 16 channels of analog. So, that is a big factor for someone like me who love analog. It's faster with analog. I get the sounds, easier with analog. Being able to have 16 channels of analog in my backpack is incredible. And it's digitally recallable. So that is really something crazy, and I think right now everybody is rightfully so after digitally recalled analog because it's so convenient. It makes our job easier, faster, and all that. But I think you were one of the first ones. It's just you don't have the knobs, you don't have the physical interface. But at the end of the day, the APB was one of the first, and it's still, I think, the first multi-channel like this because in one box you have 16 channels, and it's pretty impressive. How is the latency usable while tracking? So we actually have a low latency mode, and Colin can chime in anytime to explain it better than me because I don't track.
I think the low latency mode, it's available for Pro Tools users, and it goes as low as like the 64 sample buffer size. So it's pretty low. I mean, I think the people who have that particular question, we have, staff, around the US and around the globe that can provide you with a demo unit and you can just try it out. I mean, I think they know the box is, it's an investment. And so we want people to check it out before they make a purchase. And so if you have a desire to track with it, we can help you set that up and then you can see how it works for you.
All the APB processor, I have, automatic delay compensation, so everything is perfect. And just got the converters are super high end and question/statement here. Huge factor is that you can automate it. Yeah, you can automate it just like a full plugin. And I just wanted then to show this one. I remember seeing this one first at NAMM with you. It was just released or about to be released, and I was floored by this thing. Like on the NAMM, like Pro Audio at the booth, I was like, what the heck? And it just kept growing and growing on me. First of all, because it looks like a race car, and we all know. I'm a fan. So that was the first thing. But this thing is one of the most versatile, and there are a lot of versatile saturator out there. But this is immediate. It's got few controls, and it takes so little to fine tune it to any tracks. And that's a big factor for me because, like I said, there are many versatile saturators out there, but it takes too long to tweak that I forgot the idea or I'm not objective anymore. And the one thing that I like about the KD1 is that, first of all, many times I insert it where I need it and I just push the drive what I want it, and that's pretty much about it. I might tweak the focus and the kinetics a little bit, but most of the times it's just the sound of it as is, like default. It's just great to add density, to add aggression to tracks. But then even the fine tuning of it is so well designed with the AVD, RVD, and FVD. So just like a car, forward wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, this is the bandwidth. It gives you the bandwidth of action of the saturation. And just changing these things, no other settings, it will give you three completely different sounds and mode of action, I want to say, of the saturation that many times is just enough tweaking to get the sound that you want. So let me pick a track where to try this. All right, and you can hear how changing the three different wheel drive, changing the focus of the saturation, right? Low end here, full range, top end, and then we have the kinetics, which is probably, I'm not sure if I'm describing it correctly, but we can describe it almost as the bias of the drive. And we have the focus. If I go all-wheel drive, it's and if I bring the 808 in, we can push it a little more and exaggerate it, and then bring the dry in and mix it in. Right? Another thing that I absolutely love is that doing parallel work with this, it leads to no phase issues, right? You hear it right now. We got a full dry with a wet signal, heavily distorted underneath, and it just helps cutting through. And you can hear when you move the focus, again, the focus of the saturation changes. little warmer, right? So this is again another of my favorite processors for the KD, for the APB. The chicken head for vocals is amazing. 673 is awesome. Is that one based, Colin, loosely on the Fairchild, or?
Yeah, loosely on the Fairchild, and the C673 was also the prototype for what the APB became, because that one is the most complicated one. It has, like 3 stages of compression and limiting just to make it sound like a 670. We figured if we could make that one work, we could sort of get a sense of how complicated we could get. And so, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's actually a fantastic processor. I'm gonna just give it a go on vocals while I find the right vocals for it. So I'm gonna ask a question that is kind of interesting. I'm curious too. Can the APB take the place of adding an analog summing mixer to get our signal from the DAW? I think if you use the Mixer X Moo mixer, you're kind of close to that, right?
Yeah. The one thing we did not do is we're not summoning the analog domains. Even if you use the Moo X mixer and it's like giant mixer mode, where you have all those channels that David shows you, the 2 bands of EQ with the saturation and like dynamic range processing, you can put it up in a giant mixer and process over a bunch of tracks. But all those tracks are still independent. So any of the saturation that will occur will be independently occurring on any of those tracks. And then when you sum it together at the end, there is like a master compressor and saturator that's on the master fader of that mixer. But there is no analog summing. That way we can use as many boxes as we want. Because the plugin's also routing any channels that you select or choose to use, whether you have 1 or 5 APB 16s. The driver of the APB will choose which channels it goes to and back. You don't have to worry about any of that. Anyway, but there's no analog summing, but it does. Again, that's a very classic question of you should check it out, because I know what people want in analog summing. If I may speak sort of in David's territory, is it's great, but I think that if you have to sum it to get that saturation sound you want, and then some other signals or levels or balances are going to drop or move during the mix, you're going to get something else. So I think it's better to just saturate in those channels independently. I want to get my low end or my snare, my whatever the heck. You can get that. You can still process it with these analog processing channels. But when it comes to the summing part, we're just going to sum it in the digital domain with all kinds of headroom. But then, yes, we will send it right back out for the master bus processor, the master, whatever's in that master channel of the MUX, big mixer. And that one will still give you some compression on top of that. I'd say just check it out. If you get a chance to use a unit, it's a lot of fun.
So I just wanted to give it a pass of these 2 compressors, 67-3A and the chicken head, both kind of on the vintage side, and even more probably the chicken head in my experience, while this is quite, versatile and can be totally used for like more modern vocals. But just to give it a shot.
You keep me without chains. I never wanted anything so much than to drown in your love and not feel your rain. Set me free, leave me be. I don't wanna fall another moment in your gravity.
I wanna go from you can see my screen, guys, so you can see what a difference in dynamic there is between the quiet part, which would be the verse, and a chorus, right? So if I play them, because obviously the compressor in the way it's set up right now is compressing mostly the chorus part and kind of leaving alone the quiet part, which is kind of the purpose of using a compressor. But I just wanna show you with and without to show how really natural is the transition between these 2 parts. So without, we will hear obviously the big massive difference, right?
Than to drown in your love and not feel your rain. Set me free, leave me be.
Right? And it's not that the chorus cannot be louder, but there's such thing as too much dynamic.
Than to drown in your love and not feel your rain. Set me free, leave me be. to drown in your love.
All right, it's borderline at the same level, especially when we back into loop from the high part to the lower part, right? I absolutely love this compressor, and I love what you did, Colin, with the time constant, which is completely variable, as opposed to I actually have a hardware 670 where, you know, you got the 6 switches and that's it. You know, one has to work one way or another, so we don't have the fully variable time constant. I think it's a good option to have. And then we got the chicken head.
I need you in front of the mirror, just so you can see what I see. Even if we did it with the lights out, you would still recognize me.
And again, we're talking about a quite dynamic vocals. Is this red track here?
I need you in front of the mirror, just so you can see what I see. Even if we did it with the lights out, you would still recognize me. You don't know how long that I've been waiting. It's been building up inside me. Before I'm about to have my way, I just really wanna see you.
All right, once again, besides how organic all these compressors sound, I love in particular the chicken head, because when you get to a part that really pushes into it, you can feel that kind of vintage-y vibe where it sits the vocal right a little far back. And I just love that effect. It's on so many records that I grew up with and I love. Plus, there's a sauce button on the chicken head, which adds extra color, and I always love it. Not necessarily all the time, or not necessarily on all vocals, but it's definitely a good option to have.
I need you in front of the mirror, just so you can see what I see. Even if we did it with the lights out, you would still recognize me.
All right, a lot of low mids and, you know, just body added to it. Not necessarily the best example for, you know, male vocal like that, maybe a little too much, but just to show you how much difference does it make. This thing on drums is like gnarly. I really, really love it. Can we hear a piano by itself? Yeah, sure, we can. I have a piano. The multiband compressor, which is actually what I often use on pianos. Because pianos are a pretty complex instrument to compress. So it happens that I use multiband compressors on them, especially if it's exposed, so to speak. Okay, so for example, for this, I'm just gonna control the very low end of this, and with a multiband compressor you don't want to have too fast settings for the low end. Even with analog, it's always like a little bit challenging, especially if you have a too fast of a release. I'm gonna keep the saturation at a minimum here and just use the mid band and the top end to add a little stab to it. So slow attack, higher ratio, and we're just gonna try to tap it. I'm being conservative, but what I'm trying to do here is control and massage the very low end, so 80 and below, and just use the saturation and a slow attack compression on the mid band and the top band to just add a little more bite where the stabs come in. This is one way. Again, the MC3 is a very, very versatile processor. If we want to hear one of the moves just to show them all at this point, we only miss this one, I think. Actually, this one and the Mu X. Let's do this on the piano. Let's see how it sounds. And you hear the action of the move is kind of slow even at the fastest release settings. And I'm using a slow attack again to try to add a little bit of a little bit more bite at the initial attack. And this compressor does this kind of almost EDM curve, which can totally be used exactly for that. We have a key input just in case, we want to sidechain it with something else. And then the Elmu limiter. And we can hear the saturation already, even if this is at the minimum. All right, so the saturation on the APB is not subtle, like you don't have to guess. I have some piece of actual analog gear that are like much more subtle, and sometimes you go like, and maybe I need like to hit it 20 dB louder than this because it's not really adding that much. So depending on the processor, depending on the setting, the APB gives 100% analog saturation, just like, a piece of hardware with knobs. This is a great example. I think it's also a great example to just end the webinar, or at least the examples, because it's one of those really organic plugins / processors inside the APB. Pretty obvious color and saturation, especially for something like acoustic instruments, piano, strings, cellos, percussion as well. Just a lovely color altogether. Are these cool plugins available for sale natively? No, they're not.
I just typed the answer. No, you need the analog circuit to make them work.
Yeah. So these, what you see when I open one of these is basically an interface, just a digital way for me to tweak what's inside the box. If you take the box out of the equation, we got nothing. So there's no actual processing happening in the plugins like a plugin. It is the APB box that creates the compression, the sounds, and all that, and just the plugins are just a way to control it because it's got no knobs.
Yep. So I'm answering one of the other questions there, David. Let's give it up for David.
Thank you.
But yeah, David, thank you very much for taking your time today to go this webinar and to show all these examples out. I appreciate all the things you're doing. And I guess for everyone else that's been watching, the APBs are on sale. I put them on sale and I thought there might be some tariff trouble for everybody. So tried to ride that out as long as we could. So you have until February 20th to get one at a super bro price, and it's going back to a more normal price. But I guess McDSP wouldn't have made it for like 27 years without clients like David. And so we're really happy to have it and grateful to have his support for things like this. And yeah, the examples are great, David. They were super.
I hope it was satisfying. I did my best. I just really honestly showed what I like and use and the way I like and use it. I would tell anybody, if there's a sale going on the APB, just don't freaking miss it, because eventually you're gonna demo it, you're gonna have a friend that has it, and you're gonna go like, dang, I should have gone with the sale, because this is really a no-brainer. You got either 8 or 16 channels of amazing processing, so versatile. And let's not forget something. Colin is always as often as he can releasing new plugins for the APB and then add it to the list, which is amazing. And one of the reasons, because McDSP has been such a successful company for so long, because Colin is a genius, and I've always said it in many, many occasions before this webinar, so I'll just repeat it.
Doesn't matter if you're a genius, if you don't have genius clients that recognize what you're doing. So it goes both ways. Team sport.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody who was on the webinar. I'll look forward to do this again, I guess.
That'd be great. Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day, Internet.
Bye-bye.